I want you to imagine what if church was not just a place that you went on Sunday, but if it was something that was woven in to every part of your week. Maybe for you, it's already there. Maybe you already have your faith woven into your daily life, but many people are in this rhythm of faith on Sunday and the rest of the week is secular. And I wonder if you happen to fall in that category, if you've ever wanted your faith to feel more like a daily rhythm than a checklist. Celtic spirituality is woven into the fabric of daily life. Patrick was not the first bishop to the Celts. He was not the first missionary that was sent. The first was Palladius, this guy who went to the area that didn't really understand them. And what he did, Palladius went to the area and he built a church, and then he just expected the people to come. He just figured people will come and they're going to come learn from me, and I will teach them all the things, and I don't need to know anything about them. And what happened is the church stayed empty. Nobody came. And there's these letters between Palladius and the Pope at the time, where Palladius is essentially explaining how the Irish heathens are unreachable and have no care or concern for the ways of God. They just have no interest. And he considered the mission hopeless. And ultimately it was a failure. And it was later that they sent Patrick, who took a very different approach. Instead of building a church and expecting the people to come, he went to the people. He knew these people. He knew how they lived. He knew their way of life. And so he went and had breakfast with them, and he walked along the path with them, and he milked the cows with them. And the letters between him and the Pope are so different than the letters with Palladius. Honestly, they were getting the same response. On Sunday, the church was still empty. But Palladius looked at that scenario and said, these are godless people. And Patrick looked at this scenario and sent letters back to the Pope that said, when they wake up in the morning, they pray to God and thank God for another day, for the sun rising, for the beauty of life itself. When they kindle their fire in the morning, they thank God, they thank the light of the world for lighting the fire to keep them warm, for making their house comfortable, for cooking the food that they're going to eat that day. Patrick looked at the way they lived and noticed that prayer was woven into their daily life. It was part of the way that they lived. And he saw God in that pattern. And so he wrote to the Pope of a pre-existing faith. This tradition of prayers woven into daily life is still a part of Celtic faith today. In my own church, as I was learning what it was like to be there, I remember as we prepared for communion, we had one of these prayers. And we would all wash our hands in preparation for communion. And we would pray this prayer. We said, Lord, as these hands I free from the dirt and debris, picked up on my journey and built up over time, shake the filth from inside me and free me from the sins that bind me. Before I was in the Celtic church, my faith, even though I served as a pastor in these other places, I found that my faith had a lot of ups and downs. I would even walk away from the faith for periods of time. And I found that these phrases, like learning these prayers and bringing them into the rhythm of my daily life, I would still have those same ups and downs internally. I would feel them the same way. But I've never left the church again, because these words became the words that I rooted myself in the history of my church and my faith. When I no longer had any words to speak, when I didn't have any way to express my faith, but I still said, as I washed my hands for communion, or as I took a shower in the morning, or as I washed my hands after using the bathroom, these words would come to mind. Lord, As these hands I free from the dirt and debris picked up on my journey and built up over time, shake the filth from inside me and free me from the sins that bind me. These words connected me to my faith. They connected me to a history of other believers. What part of your daily routine is waiting for you to invite an awareness of the God who is already there? When I joined the Celtic church, I was resistant because of my evangelical background to the term priest or father. And so when I started to move into leadership roles, we had to choose. You could choose to either go into the monastic orders or you could choose to go into the ecclesiastical church. And I didn't want to become a father, a priest. And so I originally went to the monastic side of the church. And we didn't have like a live-in monastery, but we had a building. And I remember the person who was in charge of my formation, very much like a Karate Kid kind of thing. They're like, clean the floor, wax on, wax off. I get the whole thing cleaned and I go back and I tell the formation person, hey, I'm finished with the floor. And they come out and they look at the floor with me and they say, well, what was it like? How did you experience God? And I thought about it and I was honest. I was like, I didn't really experience God in this task. And they said, well, I want you to clean this square again. There was tiles on the floor. I want you to clean this particular square again, but I want you to clean this square like this is God's square. And so I did. And I found that I did it differently. I did it slower. I took more care. And that little square sparkled and it looked different than the rest after I was done because it was cleaned in a different way. It was cleaned with a different mindset. And he came out and, very wax on, wax off. He said, now do the rest of it just like that. I don't like cleaning floors, so I don't do that anymore. And I don't want to pretend that I do. But I will occasionally use the same way of thinking about things when I do things like wash the dishes. I might wash one particular plate and be like, I'm going to wash this like it's God's plate. And it slows me down. I go slower when I wash that plate. I think about all the people who are nourished using this plate, all the people who are fed and taken care of, all the love that goes into that plate. I think about the people who made the plate and all the hands that went into that. It makes me more aware of how I'm connected to everything. At the same time, it slows me down enough to recognize the God who is already there when I'm cleaning the floor or washing the dishes. What would it be like for you to invite God into those spaces, to become more aware of the God who is already there in the things that you already do, by either doing them with a mindset of this is for God, or by bringing in these rhythms of prayer that give us words to speak when we no longer have the words to say for ourselves?